presser. I'll never forget watching it, going, look, I don't know if this guy's going to be worth the crap or not, but that was an interesting presser. And there were people who didn't like it because you're talking about biting ankles and kneecaps, and I mean, obviously being a human cannibal is not to taste to people. Some. But I thought Dan Campbell was being real. Football's a violent game played by violent people, and you have to do things sometimes that, in the regular world would constitute a felony. But you can do it on a football field. And you're the Lions. You've been a doormat and a joke and a punchline forever, and we're not going to be that anymore. And if you try to do what you've been doing to us in the past, we're going to bite your kneecaps off. So I just thought it was fascinating when you hear kind of like the mechanism of how Shane Beamer got to Matthew Smiley. And it was, again, Shane was looking and talked to some people, got some word from people he respected, and Smiley's name came up. Then Smiley, people who knew Smiley reached out to Shane, and before you know it, you got a special teams coach. All right, the Vault, we're going to open that baby up, give you what's going on today in the world of sports. Maybe we'll try to get some other stuff, too, while we're at it. It is the Postgame Show. Terry Ford, happy you could hang out with us. We are rolling up until 6 here on The Game and The Game Network and at The Game TV Radio on YouTube. Post-game show. Terry Ford, Jay Phillips back with us hopefully soon. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Jay back home right now, just resting and rehabilitating. So far, everything, so far so good. And we'll continue to give you updates. And who knows, maybe we can drag Jay on at some point soon, and he can give us updates as well. So, all right, today in sports history, interesting. Couple things. One thing is very interesting. The first telecast of an American hockey game was transmitted over station W2 XBS in New York. The viewing audience watched the New York Rangers and the Montreal Canadiens from Madison Square Garden. Very interesting. 1957, we're really going old school here. 1957, United States Supreme Court rules that pro football, unlike baseball, is subject to antitrust laws. The court decided 6-3. Now, what's interesting about that is that baseball has used that antitrust exemption to their benefit and sometimes to the detriment of the game itself, while the NFL does not have the antitrust protection. And baseball, though, to be honest, Congress has also used that to kind of wave that over the head of Major League Baseball, saying, look, if you guys don't want to lose this antitrust exemption you have, you better do this, that, and this. And remember, that's what college athletics is looking for, is to get an antitrust exemption so they don't have to follow the Sherman antitrust law or antitrust act, and they can implement some rules and regulations that will not get beat in court. So the NFL this day in 1957 was said, nah, you don't get that antitrust. Sorry. 2019, in the Iowa, thank you so much, the Iowa State Class A tournament, some young lady named Caitlin Clark had a single game scoring record of 42 points for Dowling Catholic High School. Wonder whatever happened to her. I don't know. 2019, James Harden's scoring streak of games with at least 30 points ends at 32 straight as he scores 28 in the Rockets' 119-111 win over Atlanta, the second longest mark in NBA history. Look, am I a huge James Harden guy? No, I'm not. I think James Harden is the ultimate lots of stats guy, and Russell Westbrook is too. But Russell Westbrook made history, so he will end up in the Hall of Fame with numbers and that history. But the way James Harden plays also hurts you from winning championships. One guy with the ball, dribble, and sometimes he'll pass it, but a lot of times he'll shoot it. Just you can't. It's tough to run good, efficient offense because you got four guys standing around going, "Dude, what are you gonna do with the ball?" I'm just standing here. I move, you don't do anything. But I don't know if to move. I know where you're gonna move because you got the ball, and I don't know what you're doing, so I can't do anything. It's just tough to run good offense when you have a guy who has to have the ball in his hands all the time. You don't move the ball, and people don't move, and the offense stays stuck, and you're in the mercy of this guy, what he's going to do with the ball. And this guy, most of the time, wants to shoot it. So I'm not a huge James Harden guy, as him as a player. Again, there's a reason why guys like that, because they have to occupy the rock, their usage rate is so high, you eventually have a tough time because when you get in the postseason, you just can't have a guy doing that and everybody's just standing around. It's just very difficult to win in that instance. Now, is Harden going to be a Hall of Famer because he's put up some sick numbers? Yeah, he'll get in at some point. Guy scored a lot of points. And when he feels like it, he really passes the ball well. That's the ironic part of James Harden. He could be a hell of a pass first point guard who could still score. But he wants to be a guy scoring a ton of points. But anyway, on this day, he fell short of 30 points, breaking his streak at 32. So that is the vault for today. Didn't have time to go dig into all the other cool stuff we like the music history or movie history or TV or all that stuff. We'll snag some of that tomorrow. All right, we have this thing called Sweet Deals. You go to 1075thegame.com. You'll see above the flippy thingy that just keeps flipping, that thingy. Look above it, and you'll see kind of the top of the website, and you'll see Sweet Deals. You click on that sucker. You see all these cool things where you can get deals. And they're sweet. That's why they're called Sweet Deals. Follow me here. Our featured sweet deal is a Columbia YMCA 50% off a 6-month membership, which is quite the sweet deal. And the Columbia YMCA is pretty cool, and you also can get go to other YMCAs in the Midlands as well. So Columbia YMCA, our featured sweet deal, 50% off a 6-month membership. Absolutely very cool. So you can check that out. All right, coming up, 4 o'clock hour, we'll get started. Going back to men's basketball last night, Lamont Paris talking to the media post-game. We'll get some thoughts from Lamont, talking about the turnovers, which were a killer, especially down the stretch. And Lamont also talks about the opportunities that South Carolina had at the end of that basketball game to still pull a W. Couldn't get it done. Kentucky got the win, 72-63. And we'll hear from the head basketball coach coming up next here on the postgame show. Terry Ford, Jay Phillips. He'll be back soon. We're rolling solo. Thanks a lot for hanging out. By the way, on the YouTube channel, the audio is back. It is back. I took everything apart and put it back together. I'm a handyman. Right. All right, we'll pop back here from Lamont Paris, the South Carolina men's basketball coach, after a tough loss to Kentucky last night at CLA. That's next here on the postgame show on the Game Network, and at the Game TV radio and YouTube. All right, post-game show. Hour number 2. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us. All right, so Lamont Paris talking to the media post-game after the loss to Kentucky last night. Again, South Carolina and Kentucky both had issues shooting the rock last night, and part of that is didn't make shots. Part of that was the offense. Both of them got clunky at times. Part of it is you got to give credit that defenses, made things difficult every now and then. I always say this about defense and hoops. All you can do is try to make the other team uncomfortable on offense. It's all you can really do defensively. Yeah, you can block some shots and get some steals and stuff like that. You obviously want to be a good rebounding team and not give up offensive rebounds and all that stuff. But really, you're just trying to knock the rhythm of the offense off kilter. You want to speed them up. You want to make them take difficult shots. You want to not let them do the things they want to do. All that mumbo jumbo. That's really what you're looking for. And so last night, there were times both teams did that defensively, but there were times, too, you just missed open shots. And there were times you didn't run good offense, or guys were trying to do too much. There was too much dribbling or too much hero ball or blah, 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 blah. But despite all that, with Mike Sharmerjamps makes a 3 with 2:52 to go, South Carolina cut the Kentucky lead to 2 at 59-57. From that point on, the Gamecocks did not put the ball in the basket again until there was 21 seconds left in the game when Michi made a layup. And then after that, Michi hit a 3. And then after that, Michi hit a free throw. So Michi scores the last 6 points in the final, 21 seconds. The game was over at that point. You were down 10. I'm not going to say, those points didn't matter because, look, you score. But the game was pretty much over. So that's, again, if you're going deep dive into a box score or a play-by-play chart, Michi scored 6 points there when everything was done. The bottom line was when South Carolina was going through the drought, after Mongolian Mike hit the 3, you had Kobe Knox missed a driving layup. That hurt. And that was after Malachi Moreno finished a layup. And again, interior defense couldn't get anything done, and Moreno got the layup. Then you had the missed shot, and then Colin Chandler came down and banged a 3, and those 5 points in a row made it a 7-point game. Then Elijah Strong misses a 3, and then commits a foul. And by then, now it's an 8-point deficit. And it grows to 9 because Strong fouled after he missed the 3, and Denzel Aberdeen hit the free throws. It's a 9-point game now. And then Eli Ellis missed a 3. Then South Carolina gets a rebound on a missed shot and then turns the ball over. And at this point now it's 11. So my point is Kentucky started making shots and South Carolina couldn't execute and make a shot. And that's where it went. All right, Lamont Paris post-game talked about, at the end, his team, and he's right, down by 2 with under 3 minutes left. You got an opportunity to get a W. Here's Lamont talking about the end of game.
Yeah, we were. And so we did enough things. So I don't want to put a blemish on what the overall body of work was in this game. I don't. And there are all these things that you can go back and we could have done this. I'm big on the things that you could have controlled. Turnovers, in large part, to me, is one of them. Second chance opportunities, to me, in large part, is one of them. Not completely and totally, but in large part. So I'm big on those. But what is not to be lost in this whole thing is that, they've won games in this conference, and And like I said, you got a 2-point game with where you string a couple of stops together, the whole game's over. The whole game's completely different. If you string 2 stops together in one bucket in that time, it might change the whole complexion of the game. And so for it to look at whatever, 11 points or whatever, we were trying to win at the end. We got a foul and try to get a steal or whatever. But we didn't handle that time. We had a lot of plays in that time that we did not handle well, just going for home runs at times, not strong with the ball decision-making, execution of good decision, combined with poor decision-making. So it just was a lot that went wrong in that time to stretch it out a little bit.
Yeah, like we talked about, that stretch at the end, folks are trying to do too much, maybe. Trying to, instead of moving the ball and moving without the ball and running the offense and just getting the ball to guys in efficient positions to get good shots, because it's easier scoring a good shot than a bad shot. I know that was pretty deep. I'll give you a sec. That was a good one. He had some hero ball. Some guys trying to go 1-on-5, 1-on-3, 1-on-2, trying to force action and make something happen that wasn't there. Off the top of my head, I know Michi did it a couple times. Eli Ellis did it once. And look, it's from the idea, I want to make a play. And I get it, but sometimes the play is to pass the ball and then you move, and maybe you'll be in a better position to make a play. And that didn't happen in important spots late in the second half. And yeah, if you get a stop, and that's true, and I see where Lamont's going there. Obviously, if you can have Kentucky miss shots, which they didn't down the stretch to their credit, that helps you. The turnovers, I understand where Lamont's going. South Carolina turned over 12 times. Kentucky, they had 15 turnovers in the game. South Carolina assist-wise, only 9 assists on 21 made baskets. That's not very good. Besides Michi had 6 of the 9 assists in this basketball game. It might have had a couple more if dudes would have made shots off of Michi's passes. Michi also had 4 of the turnovers. Again, sometimes trying to force and try to do too much. And one time, Michi really tried to force, and it was kind of blocked off, and then he threw a pass to Sharvajamps, and it was like in the 4th row. But again, Michi also did some good things. But remember, 6 of Michi's 18 points were after this game was not in doubt anymore. So it was just a clunky night on offense. But Kentucky had a clunky night too. It's just at the end, the last 3 minutes of the game, Kentucky made plays, South Carolina didn't. And it was not a 9-point game. It was closer than that, but down the stretch, again, Kentucky, they scored, they executed, they finished plays, and South Carolina didn't, and that's where you get the score. It was, but it was right there for you. Now, here's Coach Paris talking about those turnovers, and there were only 12 of them, but Lamont talks about how they were killers.
It did, and it seemed like they all turned into points on the other end. One came from a press, and Eli turned it over, throwing it long, and they ran through that one. But then we had some other ones that were in the half court. I mean, on one of the side out of bounds, we call timeout. We run the side out of bounds. It goes to Michi. Both guys run to him, and he turns it over. Elijah's about to have a layup underneath the basket. We just had some unfortunate ones that just some of them that didn't make sense. That just didn't make sense, and it seemed like they ended up in pick six situations dang near every time that we turned it over.
Yeah, South Carolina on the 12 turnovers, Kentucky converted those turnovers to 18 points. While Kentucky's 15 turnovers, South Carolina only converted 13 points. So there's a big deal there in points off of turnovers that Kentucky, they scored more points off of your less turnovers than you scored off of Kentucky's more turnovers. A couple other stats that matter. Kentucky in this game, 18 offensive rebounds to South Carolina's 5. 18 rebounds on the offensive glass for Kentucky. South Carolina, only 5 offensive rebounds. That's huge. Huge. Fast break points, Kentucky 26, South Carolina 7. Points in the paint, Kentucky 34, South Carolina 20. Look, South Carolina doesn't play fast. They don't get a lot of fast break points in general. But Kentucky, 26 of their 72 points on a fast break, especially on a night where you're not shooting it well. That's a big amount of fast break points. And then the points in the paint, 34-20. Almost half of Kentucky's points were in the paint. And like I said, you get points off of turnovers, 18 for Kentucky. So 3 stats. Points off of turnovers, points in the paint, fast break points, Kentucky far and away winning those 3 battles. And offensive rebounds, you throw that in. It's tough to win when all that's against you. Just is. Very difficult to win. And South Carolina was right there with 3 minutes left, down by a deuce. So, all right, Lamont, one more Lamont cut in here. And here's Lamont talking about the effort of his team, which I agree with Lamont on this cut.
Yeah, we did. I had no issues with our effort. I had no issues with our effort. And honestly, you don't do what we did defensively without two components: playing hard at what you're doing, and then remembering the nuances of what you said you were going to do. So I have no issues with that whatsoever. We played well enough that we should have had a great chance to win this game.
I mean, yeah. Look, if you would have said to me, you say to Lamont, if you could stop Kentucky's best player, Otega Owe, and hold him to only 8 points on 3 of 13 shooting, how do you feel about your chances of winning? And you would go, feel pretty good stopping Owe like that? That's a thumbs up. But Denzel Aberdeen went nuts on you with 19. And Aberdeen was 6 of 12 from the floor, 3 of 4 from 3 in the game. Also dished out 5 assists, pulled 4 boards. So Denzel Aberdeen transferred in from Florida. Florida, he was there last year. He had a good game. And look, Denzel Aberdeen is averaging 13 a game. Solid shooter from 3 at 37%. You know, was better than typically is from the field. He shoots about 44% from the field, and obviously he was right at 50%. He had a good game. More assists than his average. And Kentucky has struggled this year in assist to baskets. Like, for an example, what's your percentage of assists to your made baskets? Kentucky has had issues with that, issues with consistent point guard play. But last night, Aberdeen was good. 5 assists, no turnovers. Aberdeen was kind of the X factor for Kentucky last night because, again, Owe struggled. Colin Chandler got in double digits late by hitting that huge 3. And you had Mohamed Diabate off the bench with 12. And he was an X factor as well. So, I mean, Kentucky, again, you were there. You were doing some of the things you needed to do to beat Kentucky. You just couldn't finish the deal in the last 3 minutes. All right, speaking of college basketball, we talked a lot about Darren Peterson at Kansas. Jay Billis weighs in on Peterson and some of the controversy around that player. We're going to get into that next, and we're going to hear what Jay Billis has to say about Peterson. That's coming up next here on the Postgame Show. All right, again, Crescent Construction Grand Slam Contest. If a South Carolina batter goes yard with the bases loaded, you can win cash. The pot goes up $25 every game. We're at $200 going into tonight. It's sponsored by Crescent Construction. You go to 1075thegame.com to register tonight. Maybe get a Grand Slam. South Carolina hosting Queens. 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first pitch. That is tonight right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and our affiliate 100.3 in Myrtle Beach. We'll come back here. Jay Billis' thoughts are interesting on Darren Peterson. That's next here on the Postgame Show on The Game Network, and on our YouTube channel at The Game TV Radio. All right, so Darren Peterson at Kansas, the small forward / shooting guard, whichever spot you're going to play him, has been a big subject of conversation in the college basketball world this year. Peterson, his talent screams first pick overall in the NBA draft. But a lot of things have come into question because he has missed so many games or so many parts of games with different ailments and things of that nature that there have been questions about work ethic, does he have the dog in him? Does he even love basketball? Is he just kind of cruising along so he can get to the NBA draft and get paid a lot of money? And I think they're all legit questions when you've watched this unfold at Kansas. His head coach, Bill Self, is frustrated. And that's a telling thing to me. Because Self had been, kind of putting up a good face for this for a while. And finally said, yeah, look, if this kind of thing goes on in the NCAA tournament in a one-and-done situation, our whole season could be over. Because we don't know who's going to play and who's not going to play. Which is a very legit thing to say. Jay Billis, look, do I agree with everything Jay Billis says? No, but do I respect Jay Billis's thoughts on college basketball? Absolutely. Here's Jay Billis talking about this whole thing regarding Darren Peterson at Kansas.
Rich, is if Darren Peterson were really getting advice from people about shutting it down would be the easy way to go, and the NBA would take him number one. Trying to play is what's causing, these speculative issues about his character and all that other stuff. I don't find it fair. But, if we had solid information that said so, then I'm good with it. But I think it's been a little bit unfair. And the kid doesn't talk. Like, he may do a little press event or something like that, but he really doesn't talk much. And, look, if he were listening to me, I'd said the more you talk, the more people will know you. And he never had this problem in high school. Nobody ever questioned his competitiveness. But, man, when that dude plays, there is not much question. There are not many like him. He is the real deal.
Well,
my thing.
And I agree. He's the real deal when he plays. Here's my thing, and I get where Jay Billis is going. I do. That, if the kid didn't want to play, he wouldn't be trying to play. Yeah, I mean, sure. But I guess the point is, okay, and this is what we don't know, because, again, Peterson doesn't really talk to the media, and typically I don't care if you talk to the media or not. I really don't. If you do, great. If you don't, okay, it's fine. It's just how you perform, right? I mean, if you're out there playing and you're not really a person that is comfortable talking to the media, or you just don't want to talk to the media, you don't like it, you're always nervous, you might say the wrong thing, blah, blah, whatever it is. I don't hold that against people. Some people are more comfortable in that arena than others. It's cool. But in this instance, where you have a player who, right before a game, is sick and can't play, takes himself out of games because of an injury issue, has not played in games, and it's just been like cloudy circumstances. And the coach really isn't saying a lot. Well, you heard him say a lot last week when he said, look, this could be a problem in the NCAA tournament, which was the first crack in the foundation of Bill Self, showing a little frustration with the situation, which, again, tells me something. But then, Peterson doesn't really talk to the media, and because you don't, people start speculating, and they start assuming, and they start opining on what they see, because you don't have anything but what you see. And I think Jay Billis is right. To be fair, you don't really know. But what you see is something that makes you scratch your head. Going, what's up with this guy? Is he just trying to float his way through his freshman year in college, showing the NBA the potential of his skill set, but not being all in because he's just trying to get himself to the NBA draft? Because he don't want to be in college anyway, but he's got to be because there's a one-and-done rule. And really, it's smarter to go to college for a year and play, because nationally you'll be seen, and it can help build your brand for the NBA and build your brand in college with NIL. It just makes sense. Going straight to like the G League, like we've seen players do, doesn't really help what could be your overall earning potential. It can be more with NIL today than just going off to the G League or going to play like in Australia somewhere for a year. So some of these players are just coming to college for a year because they gotta, because it's better for them to do it for themselves. And how much of that is Darren Peterson? How much of it is he's about him? We don't know. Did you just show up in college because you got to for a year and you can collect NIL dough, which is probably 7 figures, and you're like, if I can just navigate through this thing without getting hurt and I can show enough, I'm going to go really high in the NBA draft, maybe number 1. Who knows? Could that be his mindset? Yeah, we don't know. Could it be he's just having these nagging injuries that keep him from being 100% and have shut him down in games, and he really does want to play? Yeah, it could be. Could it be he doesn't have a high threshold of pain or tolerance of things? Could be that too. I don't know. We just don't know. So what we do is we watch him play. Then we watch guys like A.J. Devansta at BYU out there killing himself for 40 minutes in a 40-minute game, trying to will his team to victory because their second best player is out for the year with an ACL, Kid Sanders. You know, we watch, Cam Boozer at Duke basically doing everything humanly possible in the court to help his team win games on both ends of the court. And we see that effort and that want to. And those are the 3 guys to me that are the 3 when you talk about, first pick overall. 2 of those 3 guys are out there giving effort and intensity, and they're trying to make their teams better, and they pass it, and they give effort on D, and they're rebounding, they're doing all these things, and you watch Peterson, and for a few minutes he does stuff, but then there's an injury, or he comes out, or there's an illness, or you don't see the consistent effort. And so you naturally ask questions. And really, look, if I was a GM, I am going to, and again, not in a mean way, but I'm going to really, and if I'm picking first, man, I'm digging in, especially on Peterson. I want to find out why this went on this year. We'll have an interview. Obviously, you'll be talking to him. You need to, look at the people around him. Look at his history. I mean, a lot of these teams in professional sports hire private detectives to follow these kids around to see what's going on. I mean, look, when you're spending that much money on a player, before you draft that player and invest not just money, but the fact you're going to make him hopefully the centerpiece of your basketball team for a long time, you got to make sure you're making the right choice. And with Peterson, there's some stuff you just have to find out because the kid is ridiculously talented. There's no doubt about it. That first half he had against BYU, you were like, oh my God, this kid's got some game. We just don't see it enough. And then with all these other things we're talking about, there are legitimate question marks. I don't think it's wrong to have those questions. And again, this is the other part of it, and it's human nature. College players are getting paid now. I'm cool with that. Absolutely I am. But with that comes criticism. It's just the way it works. If you're getting 6, 7, 8 figures depending on 6 and 7 figures really to play sports collegiately, whether it's football, men's basketball, whatever, there's going to be scrutiny. You can't get away from it. You can't have stuff both ways. You just can't. So I get what Jay Billis is saying, but not to push back hard, but to say, yeah, Jay, but come on, man. Look at some of this stuff. And if nobody knows what's up, then you start to just kind of come up with your own. Here's what I think, what's up. We start the I think system. I've said this, seeing what I've seen, and if I'm a GM, I'm digging into Peterson. If I've got one of the first 3 picks in the draft, I want to find out what's up. I want to get as much intel as I can. Because right now, me just watching all this, I'm taking AJ at BYU or Boozer at Duke over Peterson in the draft. I just am. Because it's not that Peterson is so much more talented than those two. It seems like those 2 guys have more of a want to and a dog in them to be great and for their teams to win. That's just what I'm seeing. because we're not getting any other information. So appreciate you hanging out here on the postgame show, Terry Ford. As we run till 6 here on the game, I want to circle back a little bit on yesterday. Matthew Smiley, the new special teams coach, talked about some things regarding punt returns in the NFL versus college, and also talent as well. We're going to get to that next here on the postgame show as we run up until 6 here on the Game Network, and our YouTube channel at the Game TV Radio. All right, a few accidents early on as we check the traffic for the first time today. Bluff Road near Berea Road, also Broad River Road near Bush River Road, Killian Road at I-77, and White Pond Road at I-20. We'll come back, hear from the new special teams coach, Matthew Smiley, as he talks about punt returns in the NFL versus punt returns in college. This is pretty interesting stuff he talked about. We'll get to that next here on the postgame show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us. We kicked this till 6 here on the game. All right, so Matthew Smiley, the new special teams coordinator, introduced to the media yesterday by Shane Beamer, talked about something that was pretty interesting during his presser about the difference in punt returns in the NFL and in college football, because, of course, Smiley was in the NFL for a good number of years as the assistant special teams coach in Jacksonville, assistant special team coach in Buffalo, and then became the special teams coach with the Bills for 3 years. Here's Smiley discussing this whole situation, the difference between punts in the NFL and in college.
Really, there's only one rule difference between college and the NFL when it comes to punt, and that's in the NFL, only the widest two guys can release at the snap. Everybody else has to wait till the punt is kicked. In college, anybody can release at the snap. Everybody can release at the snap. That's the only rule difference, but that's what creates all the different formations that you're able to go to in college. So that opens up a world of possibilities on punt formationally, but then that also opens up all the counters to that on punt return. So that one difference in the rule between college and the NFL, that's where it gets very, very multiple in college. And to be able to not only go through a year at Penn State and see how are we protecting on punt against all these very good special teams in the Big Ten, but how are we attacking when it comes to punt pressure against the different formations we saw during the season.
And it's pretty interesting. It's like, okay, in the NFL, you do have the only two guys can go down as soon as the ball is kicked, but in college, it's go for it, man. Woo, free for all, baby. When the ball is snapped, I should say. Only two guys can go in the NFL when the ball is snapped, but in college, everybody can go. So you can do some creative stuff, but you also have to deal with what other teams can do to you as well. There's little things like that. Very interesting. Smiley also talked about the talent on kickoff returns, new guys and guys from last year as well.
I was down in the weight room this morning and just standing and meeting guys and talking to them briefly and starting to get name recognition and face with the numbers. So the roster as it appeared on film last year and the new guys that have come in, strength, speed, size, some of the specialists, both kicker, punter, snapper, and returners. There is some talent on the roster that as a special teams coordinator, I'm excited to work with.
Well, you think about what Vakari Swain did early last year with 3 punt returns for touchdowns. Nick Harbor, he came close to breaking a couple as a kick returner with that speed. So you got some stuff there, absolutely, in the return game that could benefit you. So, yeah, look, South Carolina, if you're Matthew Smiley, you land in a really good spot. Let's just be honest here. You landed with a coach who values special teams in Shane Beamer. You're bringing in a kicker out of the portal who was really good. If you look at successful field goal percentage. You got a punter last year, a young guy with a lot of eligibility left who was really good. Your coverage units were solid to good last year. And your kick returners, your kick returner, punt returner combo, not bad. And Joe D is handing you what last year was a top 30 in the country special teams unit if you look at Billy Connolly's SP Plus efficiency rankings. So if you're Matthew Smiley, I see why you would want this job. Absolutely. I don't blame you. I would want this job too. And with South Carolina, again, we talk about this. Special teams, thumbs up. Defense last year, another top 30 unit, thumbs up. And if Kendall Briles can do what Kendall Briles has done in the past with offenses with really talented dual-threat quarterbacks, your thought is the offense should be a heck of a lot better than it was last year. And we talked about last year, if the offense was just below average, you probably got a couple more wins and you're heading to a bowl game. So if this offense can take a leap to be, top 50, and that's not asking a ton with the talent you have, we'll see where the year can take you. Now, again, your defense, once again, needs to be in the top 30, 40 in the country. Your special teams in the top 30. If they can hold where they're at and your offense can, become a top 50 offense, we'll see where it takes you. Because you have to, we talked about this. You got talent. You got a quarterback with a stupid amount of talent, Lenore Sellers. A wide receiver in Nick Harbor who just started to get it more and more each week last year and has become a dangerous weapon because of his speed. And last year that speed was converting into big plays. And hopefully even more big plays this year with a better offensive coordinator and a better offense in general. You got some interesting running backs. Nobody's popping, but a lot of guys that, you say, there's something there. Hopefully it can become more than just something there. The wide receiver room, young Donovan Murph. We forget Donovan Murph was supposed to be in high school last year. How is Donovan Murph going to, you hope he can improve and take a leap in year 2? You got other young wide receivers we didn't see a lot of. Jaden Sellers started to get it going when he stepped into the lineup last year. How much is he going to improve in year 2? But the key to the whole thing, obviously, is the offensive line. Man, we never say that, do we? I have never talked so much about an offensive line in my life. If that offensive line, obviously you have the Jacarius Peak injury. That's a bummer. But we'll see if this offensive line can just become, how about okay? Solid. That will be a huge improvement from last year when it was one of the worst offensive lines in America. So all in all, again, a lot of this will come down to how much does the offense improve if the special teams and defense can continue to be at the level they were at last year. Is there a guarantee of that? No, of course not. We'll see that. Should be quite interesting. But going back to Matthew Smiley, you landed a pretty good spot, man. You really did. Now you just roll your sleeves up and go at it because you have a head coach who values special teams. There are college football teams. The special teams coach is like they pick a name out of a hat from the staff. Okay, Johnny, you coach inside linebackers, right? Well, now you're coaching inside linebackers and special teams. Good luck. Tell you, just why don't you go find a YouTube tutorial? Thanks, man. No, this team actually values special teams. So if you're Matthew Smiley, it's a good get on the job, man, and just go be good at it. It's that simple. That easy. All right, baseball tonight, 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first pitch against Queens. Getting you ready, obviously, the last tune-up till the Clemson series. So this weekend in the Clemson series, obviously game 1 is at Founders. You can hear that Friday right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and our sister station, 103.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. Saturday's game, because of men's basketball, will be on 98.5 WOMG. And then Sunday's game back on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and our affiliate in Myrtle Beach. So Friday, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock first pitch. Saturday on WOMG, 2:45 pregame, 3 o'clock first pitch. Everybody good? Okay. And we're going to do a little tailgate pregame show here on The Game from Segra on Saturday, because that's where Saturday's game is, obviously, Segra Park here in Columbia. 1 to 2:30 with our buddies Elijah and Tyler, and that is from Segra, right here on 107.5 The Game. All righty. So we got a lot of baseball to get to this weekend, and obviously a huge series with Clemson. Sunday's game, of course, is in the upstate. All right, post-game show with Terry Ford. Thanks for hanging out. as we run this baby up until 6 here on the game. We'll come back once again, take a look at what happened last night with South Carolina at CLA as they lose to Kentucky. Well, there was a positive in this game, and it's something that could have really helped you win if you could have been more efficient in the last 3 minutes. And we'll have Lamont Paris talk about that positive next here on the Postgame Show on the Game. All right, so Lamont Paris, post-game after the loss to Kentucky, talked about stopping Otega Oweh. Oweh, the Wildcats' leading scorer, again, only 8 last night, 3 of 13 shooting. Oweh scuffled, man. South Carolina did a nice job of shutting down Oweh last night. They really did. And like I said, if you would say, hey, man, Otega Oweh only scored 8 points and was 2 of 7 at the rim, 3 of 11 inside the three-point line, 0 of 2 at the three-point line, you take that in a heartbeat and say, we've given ourselves a nice shot to get a W if we could bottle up that dude. But it didn't work out. But here is Lamont Paris post-game talking about holding Oweh in check.
We did. It's the third game in a row, honestly, if you think about it, because Houck also was way under in terms of his volume and productivity when it counted. So I give us a lot of credit. I say this. We have really improved in a lot of areas, and that's one of them. I do have confidence now that as we say this is a tweak that we're in these three situations. You look at, they're three different types of players, and so you're doing something different on all those guys, and you're doing it in a 1 or 2 day prep, and the guys did a really good job. So I thought we did a really good job on not letting him get to the rim, not letting him get loose for open shots. We picked him up well in transition. I thought we did a really good job on him.
Yeah, I mean, look, Oweh missed open shots and missed some shots he typically would make, but South Carolina also did some nice work on Oweh, especially with a team that has struggled so much with their interior defense and their paint defense and their rim protection. So it was good work. But again, the sad part was Denzel Aberdeen got going last night. And that was a problem. And that hurt. As Aberdeen rolled for 19, especially knocking down 4 threes. So that hurt last night. And then you've got Diabate coming off the bench. He was 5 of 7 at the rim, and South Carolina really had a tough time with Diabate at the rim. And that hurt. But Oweh just didn't get it done. And, Lamont Paris, it's interesting. Lamont has had some success in his career at South Carolina versus Kentucky, whether it's Mark Pope or John Calipari as the head coach. And last night you were right there, man, at 59-57, 2:52 left, and then for the next 2:20 and change, you couldn't score, and that was the killer. All right, here's Lamont talking about just got to put it all together and play 40 minutes of consistent basketball.
But that's what it is. You got to put things all together. You got to put things all together, and we didn't. But I think it's a tremendous job we did defensively against him, and our rotations were good, and we threw a lot of bodies in there, and it's nice to have that as a weapon on your side to be able to say, okay, here's a really good player. We're going to do these things in theory, and then see how it works to try to hold him down, and we did it again. It gave us a good chance. Honestly, if a couple of things happens, so say you shoot the ball really well, the outcome changes completely, right? Just on shooting the ball. If you rebound the ball defensively really well, outcome changes, right? Instead of 2-point game at 2 minutes, right? You can swipe off half of those offensive second chance points, and you're up by whatever with 2.5 minutes later, and you're probably right off into the sunset. So not far, but it still doesn't turn out the way that you want it to turn out.
Yeah, I mean, look, you gave up a ton of offensive rebounds. That hurt you a ton. I mean, Kentucky on the offensive glass, 18 offensive rebounds, 18 second chance opportunities, 18 extra possessions, so to speak, in the basketball game you gave up. Compared to the fact you only got 5 offensive rebounds on your end. So they were plus 13 on you in offensive rebounds. That hurts. Their overall rebounding edge on you at 48-28. That hurts. Again, that's been an issue on and off all year. Like I said, the interior defense has been a problem on and off all year. And defensively in general, look, Knox and Stute, my opinion, are your two best perimeter defenders. Ellis tries. There's just some physical limitations there on defense that just are going to hurt him. But man, he busts his hump. That's the thing I like about Eli Ellis. I go, yeah, look, he's got to learn how to adjust his game to those physical limitations he has. He's not the tallest guy in the world, not the biggest dude in the world, not the quickest guy in the world, not the most explosive guy in the world, but he has basketball skills. He just has to say, okay, the stuff I could do in high school, some of it I can't do, and some of it I got to do different so I can be successful offensively in college. But he has skills, and he has a ton of want to, and he gives effort. And I'm just very impressed with the intangibles of Eli Ellis's game. But Michi at times can really dig in on defense, but to me, I don't think he's consistently as good as Stute or Knox. That's just me. But the interior has been a problem all year. not a lot of defensive help, skill, ability, communication, want to in the interior. And you kind of saw that a bit last night against Diabate. 5 of 7 at the rim. I mean, overall, Kentucky 16 of 27 at the rim. And that's because Owe really struggled 2 of 7. Kentucky had, 11 misses at the rim, half were Owe. So, but South Carolina was a good effort. I mean, Kentucky right now is an NCAA tournament team. Yeah, they've been scuffling a bit, but they are right now in the dance, according to Joe Lunardi. And South Carolina was down 2 a little bit under 3 minutes to go and just couldn't finish the deal. We'll see where everything goes moving forward the rest of the season. South Carolina will not be favored in any of the rest of their games. Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss are not going to be favored. Then they'll have an SEC tournament game. So you got 4 games left. And when the dust settles, we'll see where everything's at. And then we'll hear from the athletic director, Jeremiah Donati, on what's going to go on regarding Lamont Paris and his staff. So, 5 o'clock news, sponsored by Integrated Media, coming up next here on the Postgame Show with Terry Ford. Appreciate you hanging. We go till 6 here on the Game Network, and at the Game TV Radio on YouTube. All righty, here we go. Accidents, White Pond at I-20. Also, Killian Road at I-77. Two Notch Road at I-77 southbound, that's exit 17. I-26 eastbound at I-20, exit 107B. I-20 eastbound to Bush River Road, exit 63. Broad River Road to Bush River Road, and Bluff Road near Berea Road. Come back, knock off the 5 o'clock news, sponsored by Integrated Media here on The Game Network, and at The Game TV Radio on YouTube. All right, time to check what's going on in the world of sports. 5 o'clock news, sponsored by Integrated Media. We talked a ton already about South Carolina's loss, 72-63 to Kentucky last night. Gamecocks on the season, falling now overall to 12-16. League play 3-12 in the SEC. We'll see where they end up regarding seeding for the SEC tournament. 3 games left. Georgia in Athens, Tennessee at home, Mississippi in Oxford. Whether it's ESPN or KenPom, both of their predictor models predict that South Carolina will lose all 3. Good news is you don't play games with predictor models. For example, KenPom has South Carolina with a 15% chance to beat Georgia in Athens, a 21% chance to beat Tennessee here in Columbia, and a 36% chance. I had to double check that thing. 36% chance to beat Ole Miss in Oxford. Matter of fact, the projected score of that game is 73-69. So again, out of the 3 games, your best chance is to beat a bad Ole Miss team in Oxford. So that's the way the season kind of plays itself out, according to the analytic predictor sites. All right, tonight we have baseball. 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first pitch. South Carolina hosting Queens. That's the tune-up for Clemson this weekend. The true test of where you're at early in the year, obviously, is the 3-game series against Clemson. Game 1 in Columbia at Founders. Game 2 in Columbia at Segra, right here off of Bull Street. Game 3 in the Upstate. Women's basketball is tomorrow night against Missouri. 7:30 pregame, 8 o'clock tip in Como. South Carolina, if the women win that game, they clinch the regular season SEC title and the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament, which means they would play, I'm going to do this off the top of my head, Friday, March 5th at 11:30 pregame, noon tip. And you would obviously hear that game right here on 107.5, the game in Columbia. All righty, off to some news outside of our little burg. In the NFL, something interesting is happening with the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray. Now, in Indianapolis at the Combine, when the entire league is huddling for the Underwear Olympics, the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals, Monty Ossenfort, said that he has talked with quarterback Kyler Murray to discuss how last season unfolded, But a source told ESPN that Austin Fort and Kyler Murray have not talked since the season ended. When asked at the NFL Combine on Tuesday whether Austin Fort had sat down with Murray to talk about last season and what Murray wants in the future, Austin Fort responded like this, quote, "Yeah, I've always had a good dialogue with Kyler, and I'd say last season wasn't up to what Kyler wanted. It wasn't up to what any of us wanted as a season as a whole. And so when you have that kind of year that we had, there's a lot of room for improvement. We got to find a way to do that, not only with that position, but all positions. That's what we're focused on." Now, so let's be fair here, okay? Here's the question was, have you sat down with Murray to talk about last season and what Murray wants in the future? Austin Fort responded, listen, here's what he said. Yeah, I've always had a good dialogue with Kyler. Now, he said, yeah, in the beginning, you assume. He said, yeah, man, we've sat down. We've always had a good dialogue. But he didn't truly say, yes, I sat down with him since the season ended to talk about everything. That was a very vague answer. And then a source told ESPN that no, Austin Fort has not talked to Kyler Murray. So, again, if you're Austin Fort, you kind of, because a lot of these guys and gals in professional and collegiate sports, to be fair, will answer questions that give you wiggle room, right? Where you're not giving a definitive answer. This feels like Austin Fort trying to give himself wiggle room, not saying yes or no, because maybe he really hasn't talked to him. Now, if Austin Fort would have just said, follow me here, if you were asked, hey, have you sat down with Kyler, talk about last season and what Kyler Murray wants in the future? Hey, look, I've always got good dialogue with Kyler. If you leave the yeah out, now you got wiggle room like for days. But you put the yeah in there. So that makes people feel like you have talked to Kyler Murray. Then a source close to Kyler Murray says, no, this has not happened. It just gives that feeling of you're a dysfunctional organization. Now, if you haven't talked to Kyler Murray, just say this, no, I haven't had an opportunity to talk to Kyler yet. Then people will say, obviously, then it would be, why not? And for me personally, why I think it, and Austin Fort has not sat down with me either to talk about Kyler Murray's future, but if you truly haven't talked to your quarterback about his future, it means he's not your future quarterback. It's that simple. If Kyler Murray's your dude, first of all, you don't handle everything like you did last year because you would have played Kyler Murray once it seemed like he was healthy enough to get on the field. But you didn't play him because you already owe him guaranteed dough. You're going to have to eat money. That's just the way this goes. I think it's $36 million guaranteed. There's also a guaranteed roster bonus due for $19.5 million. So you're going to be having to gobble money in some way, shape, or form for Kyler Murray. But if you wanted Kyler Murray to be your future quarterback, like the reason you drafted him, you wouldn't have handled the situation you did last year with Kyler Murray. You wouldn't have. You were picking Jacoby Brissett to play ahead of Kyler Murray because, you didn't want to play him. You didn't want him to get hit, get hurt. You didn't want more extra money you had to throw on the table. You didn't want anything to happen to damage your trade value. There are a lot of reasons you didn't play Kyler Murray, but if he was your dude, your guy, as soon as Kyler Murray got healthy, you'd have put him on the field because you wanted to play. Because that's why you're paying him the gobs of money you do. So to me, it's very simple. If you didn't talk to Kyler Murray, which it feels like you didn't, it's because he's not your future. And you didn't want to say that out loud because you don't want to ruin any of your leverage if you think you have any with Kyler Murray, which I really don't know if you do. But once again, this is what happens when you draft a guy to be your franchise quarterback and you whiff. And right now, Kyler Murray's a whiff. He's not been a total, oh my God, hideous bust. But there hasn't been consistency with Kyler Murray. He's had some good stretches, some bad stretches. And then when it came out that you had to put in his contract, you had to actually watch film and study, That was a huge red flag for everybody, and you basically threw your quarterback under the bus saying he wasn't a hard worker and he didn't study the game like a quarterback needs to. And he's just relying on his physical gifts. And that's not the way to play quarterback in the NFL. Hell, ask Michael Vick. Michael Vick, he said the one thing he wishes he could go back and do was play for Andy Reid like he did in Philadelphia after he came back from prison. Michael Vick learned how to be a quarterback working with Andy Reid, but again, Michael Vick was at a different stage of his career. Because Michael Vick in Atlanta was like, dude, watch film? Why don't you watch me on the field do all sorts of freaky things? I don't need to watch no film. Please. But Michael Vick, as he got older, went through the things he went through, got with Andy Reid, the quarterback whisperer. Michael Vick said, oh, my God, if I'd have watched film and broke things down and all that to go with my physical skill when I was younger, oh, my God, what could I have been? So having a quarterback like Kyler Murray, basically you're telling the world the guy doesn't do what a quarterback needs to do to be really successful, which is study film and be good at the cerebral part of the game. That was a big red flag. So to me, all this is very simple. The Arizona Cardinals, in a perfect world, will move on from Kyler Murray, if they can, knowing they got to eat some dough because, again, trading for him, some teams got to really love him and think they can fix the issues, both on and off the field with Kyler Murray. I don't think I would take that on, but somebody might. We'll see. 5 o'clock news sponsored by Integrated Media here on The Game. Obviously, everybody's at the NFL Combine. And Reuben Bain Jr. playing at Miami was a beast coming off the edge. Had a fantastic year. He will be a first-round pick. We'll see how high he goes in the first round. I think he'll go in the top 12, in my opinion. Bain, the thing about Bain that scouts are talking about is his arm length. He doesn't have that perfect arm length of an edge pass rusher. And Bain said, people keep bringing that up out of nowhere, but no teams have brought it up to me, so I don't bring it up either. As long as I just talk the talk and walk the walk, play with technique, nobody actually seems to care. You see, that's me. Look, this arm length deal has been brought up about Bain. But all I know is this. He had 5.5 sacks last year, 20.5 sacks in 3 years. And, look, there are teams that might be concerned about the arm length. There are going to be teams that turn the tape on and go, this dude can flat out rush and hit quarterbacks. And I'm not worried about his arm length. If you buy the film, think the things that Bain does to get to a quarterback are going to translate to the NFL, you don't care about arm length. But some teams do stay in that metric world of, well, a guy that doesn't have arm length between this and this and this, that'll be an issue. Bain measures at 31 inches, about 2 or 3 inches shorter than desired. I'll give you one guy, Tennessee Titans head coach Robert Saleh said of Bain, his tape is undeniable. He's an unbelievable football player. He plays with great violence. His football IQ is off the charts. I would rather look at that than worry about his arm length. That's just me. Call me crazy. That would be me. Miami Dolphins, their new head coach, Jeff Hafley, says they take arm length into consideration on a case-by-case basis. Hafley said he has seen shorter-armed edge rushers get eaten up, but that some players are so quick they get their hands inside the blocker first. Yeah, exactly. You got to watch Bain play. You turn on the tape and you say, okay, he's quick enough, his technique is good enough, the arm length thing doesn't matter. But if you're just going to automatically discount a guy because of arm length, I don't think that's a smart way to go. All right, 5 o'clock news, sponsored by Integrated Media with Terry Ford. We're going to pop back in here. Gamecock Notebook. Lamont Paris talked to the media after the loss to Kentucky last night. Obviously, Matthew Smiley and Shane Beamer also talking to the media yesterday. We'll get a lot of Gamecocks talking to the media next here on the Postgame Show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us. We go till 6 here on The Game Network, and on our YouTube channel at The Game TV Radio. Quick check on the traffic. We got stop and go in Lexington, I-26 westbound between exit 110 and 108. Accidents, Bluff Road at Berea Road, Broad River Road near Bush River Road, Bush River Road at I-20, I-20 eastbound at Bush River Road, exit 63, I-26 eastbound at I-20, exit 107B, I-77 southbound at exit 17, 2-notch, Sparkleberry Lane near 2-notch, White Pond Road at I-20. All right, Gamecock Notebook. Hearing some coaches talk. We will start with Lamont Paris. Last night, a tough 72-63 loss to Kentucky. Here's Lamont talking about still having opportunities late in that basketball game. Again, 2:52 to go. Mike Sharmajamps hit a three. It was a 2-point contest. South Carolina then went about 2 minutes and 20 seconds-ish without making a bucket. Kentucky did execute better offensively, and they get the win. Here's Coach Paris talking about had a chance at the end to pull off a W.
Yeah, we were. And so we did enough things. So I don't want to put a blemish on what the overall body of work was in this game. I don't. And there are all these things that you can go back and we could have done this. I'm big on the things that you could have controlled. Turnovers in large part to me is one of them. Second chance opportunities to me in large part is one of them. Not completely and totally, but in large part. So I'm big on those. But what is not to be lost in this whole thing is that, they've won games in this conference, and like you said, you got a 2-point game with where you string a couple of stops together, the whole game's over. The whole game's completely different. If you string 2 stops together in one bucket in that time, it might change the whole complexion of the game. And so for it to look at 11 points or whatever, we were trying to win at the end, we got a foul and try to get a steal or whatever. But we didn't handle that time. We had a lot of plays in that time that we did not handle well, just going for home runs at times, not strong with the ball decision-making, execution of good decision, combined with poor decision-making. So it just was a lot that went wrong in that time to stretch it out a little bit.
I mean, you had your chances and opportunities despite some things in this basketball game where you're getting out-rebounded. You got, Kentucky, tons of offensive rebounds, fast break point advantage. What was it? Points off a turnover advantage, points in the paint advantage. You still were only down 2 with a tick under 3 minutes to go. But one of the things, again, it's been a thing all year. You look at, basic shots at the rim. Kentucky had 27 shots at the rim. South Carolina had 10. Kentucky converted 16 of those 27 at the rim. South Carolina converted 4 of 10. Basically, Kentucky outscored you at the rim 32-8. It's tough to get over that, man. It just is. And it's been an issue on and off all year. It just has. South Carolina, you don't have a consistent interior scoring presence. Your perimeter guys aren't consistently getting to the rim. There are games where Michi attacked more than usual. Like last night, you look at Michi's numbers. Going to the rim, Michi was 1 of 3. There are nights he attacks more at the rim than just 3 times. Again, is Kentucky a big team? Sure they are. Oweh's got size. Aberdeen's a big guard. Chandler is 6'7", 6'5", I'm sorry. Chandler's 6'5", Aberdeen is 6'5" as well. So you're running 6'5", 6'5". Oweh is he's 6'4". So you're 6'4", 6'5", 6'5" on the perimeter. Down low, you're running Diabate or Malachi Moreno at 7 feet, the freshman. Diabate is 6'7". And then your other freshman, Jalovic is 6'11". And Jalovic, by the way, we didn't talk about the fact that he was 4'4" at the rim. So, yeah, you've got size. Kentucky's got a lot more size than South Carolina. And does that speak part of the 4 of 10 at the rim? Sure, it does. And does it speak a lot of the 16 for 27 for Kentucky at the rim? Yeah. But again, South Carolina couldn't counter from 3-point range. Again, 8 of 29. You're settling now for mid-range shots and long twos, and you got to be really good, and you got to be really nailing it to make up for the fact that you can't get to the rim at all, and Kentucky's getting to the rim a lot. So you fall 72-63. Next up for Carolina will be Georgia. 3 o'clock pregame, 3:30 tip, right here on 107.5 The Game Saturday, and our affiliate 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. One more from Lamont real quick. And that is Lamont talking about the turnovers. There were only 12, but Kentucky did get 18 points off those 12. Here's Coach Paris about giving the ball away.
It did, and it seemed like they all turned into points on the other end. One came from a press, and Eli turned it over, throwing it long, and they ran through that one. But then we had some other ones that were in the half court. I mean, on one of the side out of bounds, we call timeout. We run the side out of bounds. It goes to Michi. Both guys run to him, and he turns it over. Elijah's about to have a layup underneath the basket. We just had some unfortunate ones that just some of them that didn't make sense. That just didn't make sense, and it seemed like they ended up in pick six situations dang near every time that we turned it over.
Yeah, that was the thing about the game. You only have 12 turnovers, but geez. I mean, it seemed like Kentucky converted almost every time with 18 points off those 12 turnovers. And did it hurt you? Sure, the combination of that, again, the points in the paint you gave up, the offensive rebounds you gave up, the shots at the rim you gave up. Even though you did play good defense, I mean, the effort was there defensively. It really was. But it's just some of those things were too much to overcome. And again, look, at the end of the day, let's just be flatly honest. It's as simple, and my uncle used to say this all the time, Aaron's is better than Aaron's. Kentucky's just a better team. On paper, on the floor, there's the better team. And South Carolina hung out and did some things to have a chance to win that basketball game in the last 3 minutes, but Kentucky's just better. It goes back to roster building. All right, Matthew Smiley, the new special teams coordinator, talking to the media yesterday. In case you missed it, Smiley coming back to college after being in the NFL for a bit in Jacksonville and Buffalo. Smiley, though, coached all over the place collegiately before jumping to the NFL, and he's been an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, position coach. Here's Smiley talking about coming back to college after spending so much time in the NFL.
Now that the dynamic kickoff exists in the NFL, it's completely different. I only did the inaugural year of that in the NFL, so getting back to Penn State was really getting back to what I was used to with kickoff and kickoff return for sure. Punt return, that was an education that was helpful to be around that.
And Smiley last year was at Penn State, just kind of helping out the Nittany Lions. And the question can be, well, okay, you were a special teams coach with the Buffalo Bills, and then all of a sudden you were just kind of helping out at Penn State. And his daughter did go to Penn State, so he got a chance, like he said, to spend a year having lunch once a week with my daughter. Now, how much of a value was that to Matthew Smiley? He said, look, I want to take a year off. I'll hang at Penn State, help them out however they need me to help them out, and I get to hang out with my daughter. And that's very valuable for me. And I'm going to do that for a year. I got enough money in the bank. I don't have to live in my car. Let me do it. It might have been that simple. But yeah, you go, wow, dude, you were a special teams coach in the NFL, and then once you got let go of that, you just were kind of hanging around at Penn State, whatever they needed. And it might have been just as simple as he wanted to spend time with his daughter at Penn State. All right, there's the Gamecock Notebook. We're going to jump back here with a drive around the SEC. Kirby Smart, you ever know those celebrity roasts that they do on Comedy Central? They need to get Kirby Smart involved. He was roasting some folks the other night at the Steve Spurrier deal, the coaches deal. We're going to play you a little bit of Kirby Smart coming up next in the drive around the SEC. And what freshmen in the SEC might have a lot of pressure on them in this upcoming football season. We'll get into that coming up next. Carolina Calls is tomorrow night here on The Game in Columbia. 7 o'clock, Lamont Paris, Derek Scott. Again, 7 o'clock in Columbia and our affiliate in Myrtle Beach, Carolina Calls. The women are playing tomorrow night. 7:30, our coverage begins like we do every Thursday night on our sister station, B1067, as they take on Missouri. Pop back, give the drive around the SEC next here on the postgame show. Terry Ford on the Game Network, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube. All right, we have an accident. I-20 westbound at I-26, exit 64. It's just gone. It just disappeared right off the grid. So we don't have it anymore. Never mind. All right, accident still on the grid. Bush River Road at I-20. I-20 eastbound at Bush River Road, exit 63. I-20 westbound at I-26, exit 64. I-26 eastbound at I-20, that's exit 107B. I-77 southbound at 2 Notch, that's exit 17. Sparkleberry Lane near 2 Notch as well. We'll pop back and drive around the SEC. Kirby Smart roasting folks earlier this week. We'll get to that next here on the Postgame Show. All right, so Steve Spurrier had a little coaches get-together earlier this week. And Kirby Smart, the head coach of Georgia, and Mario Cristobal, the head coach of Miami, had a little fun with each other. We're going to play you the Kirby Smart part because he kind of starts making fun of everybody. Here's Kirby, takes the mic, and starts by talking about, I guess, the parents of a player and how much he likes those folks, and then it just kind of goes from there. Here's Kirby Smart starting off his little riff with recognizing these parents of a player who are in attendance.
Well, first of all, he was an incredible family, and he was a joy to recruit. We had a great time, had a great relationship. They're a fun-loving, just being back with them tonight. I hadn't got a chance to talk to them in a while, and they were going back and forth about the 50th birthday party he got and the 50th birthday party she got, and it wasn't quite the same. Mama wins out when it comes to that, but we probably sponsored that trip with all the NIL money we spent, so I promise you that's a good, safe bet, but that's all right. They deserve it. Mario's right behind him, and if it had been up to him, he would have paid a lot more NIL money because it came down to us, too, so I don't like you being real close to Mario right now, you know what I'm saying? He's still got another year left. Got to be careful around Mario. Sometimes he'll take your players, if you know what I mean. But, no, I'm just kidding. It's all right. I was talking to Mario earlier, and he came up to me, and he gave me a Lane Kiffin joke, and he and Lane are very similar in a lot of ways. They're like best friends. And he came up to me, he's like, you ought to start getting on some protein shakes. You've had too many carbs. And I said, well, you probably ought to spend some time with Steve Spurrier because he won more conference championships at Duke than you have in Miami. So Coach Spurrier and him got to visit some. I don't know why you're over here laughing too now. Coach Summerall, I got to ask you a question. Come out. Is your daughter is a realtor? Did I hear that right? Is she the best realtor in Gainesville?
Yeah, one of the best.
One of the best. Okay. Well, you're the fourth coach I've played since being at Georgia, so she's getting a lot of money sold houses. She's going through them. And I have tremendous respect for this town. I had no idea how great a basketball town this really was. You know what I mean?
That is Kirby Smart. That was funny, man. So Kirby takes a shot at Mario Cristobal, stealing players. Remember, Carson Beck was at Georgia. Really wasn't going to go back to Georgia, the Bulldogs, and Carson Beck kind of, Georgia was like, yeah, Carson, you can move on. But Mario Cristobal, again, you see what's happened to Duke with Darian Mensah. I mean, Mario has no problem stealing your players. I mean, a lot of coaches do it too. But so Kirby Smart takes a shot at Mario Cristobal. And Cristobal also took shots at Kirby Smart earlier in this thing. So and Cristobal was funny too. Then Kirby, which I think was really good, starts, takes a shot at Mario saying, you ought to talk to Coach Spurrier. He won more ACC titles at Duke than you've won at Miami. Bam! People forget Steve Spurrier won the ACC championship at Duke as a head coach. And then he hits, and I thought this was great, because John Summerall, the new head coach of Florida, is in the audience, and Kirby goes, hey, what are you laughing about? He looks at Summerall, and then he goes to Steve Spurrier about his daughter being a realtor in Gainesville, and then I love Kirby. You're the fourth Florida coach I played against, bro. And he looked at Spurrier. Your daughter must be making a lot of money. Kirby was great. He was phenomenal. Man. So that was Kirby Smart. Again, I put him on the Comedy Central roast. That was excellent stuff from Kirby Smart. All right, so in the SEC, as we start kind of looking toward the 2026 football season. There are some freshmen who are looked at to be quite important to their football teams. Some in the SEC, and some just in general have a lot laid on their plate for 2026. So we'll flip through a few of these, and we'll hit the quarterback position because everybody always cares. Faison Brandon at Tennessee. There is a big question mark at Tennessee when it comes to quarterback. George McIntyre, a redshirt freshman, I believe. Ryan Staub, the Colorado transfer. And now Faison Brandon, because again, Joey Aguilar right now has been turned down in his attempt to play next year at Tennessee. That's something obviously Josh Heupel and the crew would love to have had Aguilar back for another year. So far, he's been denied. Does that stop anybody? No, you could go to the state Supreme Court and appeal. That's right now what's going on in Alabama with the Charles Bediako situation. It's never over till it's over, till you exhaust every possibility. And could Aguilar continue trying? Sure. But right now, it looks like George McIntyre, Faison Brandon, and Ryan Staub. I almost called him Rusty Staub. If you're old, you know. Will compete for the quarterback job unless something happens different with Joey Aguilar. Also in the SEC, the quarterback situation, Jared Curtis at Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia is done, we think. And now Jared Curtis, who grew up in Nashville, is going to get every opportunity to be the starter at Vandy. Every opportunity. And one of the reasons a lot of folks say that Curtis flipped his commitment from Georgia to Vanderbilt because he's going to have a chance to start right away if he can handle his business good enough. Now, again, this is the number 2 scoring offense in the SEC this past season. And they'll have Cedric Alexander back, Junior Sherrill, Trey Richardson. I don't know about Trey Richardson. I'm just looking at this blurb. Hold the thought on Trey Richardson. But Cedric Alexander, Junior Sherrill, definitely will be back. But Jared Curtis stepping in for Diego Pavia, that's going to be a thing. Good luck. Good luck. Alabama couldn't run the ball for snot last year. So you bring in Xavier Crowell, number 3 running back in the 2026 class. He reclassified to enter. So basically, he should be in high school this coming up year. So not only are you reclassifying to play in college, even though you should be a senior in high school, but there's an expectation you got to help out to get this running game going. Now, obviously, what helps out is an offensive line that's any good. And you did get Hollywood Smothers. Well, you almost had Hollywood Smothers, and at the last minute, Texas got Smothers. So that doesn't help. You got Daniel Hill, who's had moments, but Xavier Crowell might be asked to really help out in the run game if the offensive line can actually block somebody this year. Also in the SEC, this list has Lamar Brown, defensive tackle at LSU, ranked number 1 in the ESPN top 300. So I'm guessing there was some NIL money thrown that way. Now, the LSU defense last year was really good, but again, you got a new head coach in Lane Kiffin. But the pressure is everywhere in Baton Rouge to get this thing back in the right direction and to get in the college football playoffs. So the pressure's on everybody. Now you have a freshman who's the number 1 recruit in the country who is going to LSU. A name that I think is interesting, couple names. Chris Henry Jr., the son of Chris Henry, who played with the Cincinnati Bengals, is looked at as the next great wide receiver at Ohio State. He'll be a freshman, and people think he is going to be special. But remember, wide receiver coach / offensive coordinator Brian Hartline has taken off to South Florida as the head coach. How much did Hartline have to do with developing these wide receivers? Well, we're going to find out, but Chris Henry Jr.'s got a ton of ability. And the last one, because South Carolina was chasing Zion Ellie, the edge from Maryland, who ended up staying committed to the Terps. He's got a ton of pressure on him. Number 2 ranked recruit in the class of 2026. And Maryland was last year. Better on defense and offense, but Ellie's going to be asked to come in with the expectation level on this young man is gigantic to come in and be a game wrecker. So there you go. There's some freshmen. We kind of concentrate on the SEC for the most part, facing pressure in 2026. All right, we got to look at what we did from a wagering angle last night. It was a mixed bag. We got 2 out of 3. And then we'll look at tonight's games in the SEC as we take on the internet. That is next here on the Postgame Show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us. We go for one more segment here on The Game and The Game Network and at The Game TV Radio on YouTube. All right, taking a look at the traffic. We have a few accidents. Sparkleberry Lane at 2 Notch Road. I-77 southbound at 2 Notch. That's exit 17. I-26 eastbound at I-20 at exit 107B. I-20 westbound at I-26. That's exit 64. I-20 eastbound at Bush River Road, exit 63. And Bush River Road at I-20. Bum, 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 bum. All right. Crescent Construction Grand Slam contest. We're up to $200 in this pot. Real simple. Go to 1075thegame.com. Look for the Grand Slam contest, sponsored by Crescent Construction. Click on it. Fill out the little entry form, and you're in. It's that simple. Trust me, if I can explain it, it can't be tough. If a Gamecock hitter then goes yard, you can win the pot, $200. Again, go to 1075thegame.com, and you have a chance tonight. So hurry up and do it now before 6:30. Because 6:15 pregame coverage starts, South Carolina Queens from Founders in 6:30 first pitch. Here on 1075 The Game in Columbia and our affiliate 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. All right, we got to check out what we did last night versus the internet, but first we need the music. This makes it more dramatic, doesn't it? Makes it sound really like this is important, like I got my whole life savings on this. Which thank God I don't, because man, do I suck at this. All right. Last night we went 2-1. Unfortunately, we picked Kentucky to cover at CLA against South Carolina. It was 5.5 or 6.5. I'm trying to remember, but Kentucky covered with a 9 spot. 72-63. We took Oklahoma to beat Auburn. The game was in Norman. And Oklahoma just blistered Auburn 91-79. So we got those two. Here's the one we missed, and I was pretty confident. Number 22, Tennessee, rolling into Como to face Missouri. And the Tigers, to their credit, pulled the W 73-69 over Tennessee. Missouri moving themselves to coming off the bubble for the NCAA tournament. Rough night. Just rough night for Tennessee. Just offensively a little clunky. Nate Emmett was only 5 of 14. Jacoby Gillespie only 6 of 21. While Missouri shot it better at 47% overall from the field. T.O. Barrett had a big night, 28, and Mark Mitchell added 23. So, bottom line is we lost that one. So we got 2 out of 3. All right, tonight in the SEC, let's go for this. Florida is just, again, they are curb stomping, folks. Gators have won 3, 6, 7 straight. 12 of 13. Their only loss, this is kooky, to Auburn. And since getting beat by UConn back in, what was it? December 10th. Since that loss to UConn in the non-conference, which gave Florida 4 losses on the season. At that time, Florida was like 5-4 or something like that. Florida has only lost twice, to Auburn at home and at Missouri. That's the kind of heater the Gators have been on. They go to Texas. Now again, the Longhorns have played better as the year has gone along under Sean Miller. They have won 5 of their last 6. They did lose at Georgia, but this game is in Austin. So, yeah, that's a tough one, because Texas has been playing well. You figure Florida's due to get beat at some point. Texas, they're an excellent offensive team and a bad defensive team. And Florida's really good at both, especially defense. I'm going to, that's a tough one. Can I phone a friend? And the music stops right away when I ask. Florida's given Texas 7.5. I think Florida wins the game, but Texas covers the 7.5. I think the game will be close. The game's in Austin. Longhorns have been, for the most part, playing well. I will take Texas to cover the 7.5, but I think number 7 Florida wins the game. Vandy's at home, hosting Georgia. Vandy giving Georgia 7.5. Again, Georgia's been a mixed bag lately. They've been 3-5 in their last 8 games. They did win at Kentucky, but they also got waxed at Oklahoma. They did win at LSU and got waxed at Texas. So who knows what you're getting with Georgia. Vanderbilt, they were undefeated for a long time, and since they finally lost, they've lost 6 games. So they're right around 500, and they have lost at home to Missouri. They have lost at home to Arkansas. They have lost, they have lost at home to Florida, I'm sorry. And they've lost at home to Oklahoma. So I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the heck happens here. I'll take Vandy. Look, Georgia's getting 7.5. I'll take Georgia to cover the 7.5. Even if Vanderbilt wins, it'll probably be close. These two teams are just whacked. Number 17, Alabama, hosting Mississippi State. We saw how bad Mississippi State was close up here, right? Alabama's given 14.5. They will run Mississippi State out of the gym and cover the 14.5. This is one of those games you can see Alabama dropping, I don't know. I mean, South Carolina scored 97 against Mississippi State. Alabama might score 297 tonight. So I'll take the Tide to cover the 14.5. Texas A&M, who has been hit and miss lately, will travel to Arkansas. The Razorbacks at home are crushing folks. They are giving A&M 7.5. I will give A&M 7.5. I think Arkansas wins big. Ole Miss, who's terrible, takes on LSU, who's terribler. That's a word. 3-11 in the SEC, Ole Miss. 2-12 in the SEC, LSU. I'll just take Ole Miss because they're at home. They're giving LSU a 1.5. I mean, that's bad and bad. Matt McMahon will be fired after this year at LSU. They gave McMahon money between $8 and $10 million. They upped the NIL, and the team is terrible. Chris Beard obviously is a really good head coach, and things have just gone sideways in Oxford. Chris Beard will be back. But tonight, I'll take Ole Miss in a 1.5 against LSU. So there we go. That's what it looks like. And last night, again, we were 2-1. And then we lost. The one we lost, I thought for sure we'd win with Tennessee going into Missouri. Because Tennessee had been playing so well. By the way, Tennessee is winless as a ranked team this year. I saw that stat this morning. Weird. Thanks a lot for hanging out. We got baseball 6:15, pregame 6:30 first pitch with Derek and Stewart as South Carolina hosts Queens. That is coming up in just a little bit here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us. We always appreciate you. Thanks a lot for spending time with us. We'll do this again tomorrow at 3 here on The Game Network, and at The Game TV Radio on YouTube.